This is Bleav in Buckeyes. I'm Bryant, with All-American quarterback Chimdi Chekwa. We got an interesting show for you guys today. We got some information. We're going to talk about some stuff. We're going to give our opinions because that's what we do here at, I don't know, this is Buckeye Nation Podcast, whatever you want to call the network, man. But yeah, man, how you doing, man? What's going on? How you feeling, man? Heard you running some hills, man, lifting weights, man. What's up, man?
Yeah, I'm getting back to it, man. I've been, letting myself go over the last few months. So
hey, man, cap's around the corner, man. You got to be.
Yeah, I'm trying to get in football shape just in case they need a sub. Guys are getting paid now, so I'm out here, but I'm a free agent. So if anybody needs me, I'm ready to go. But I'm getting back to it. I hurt my back a little bit though, so I'm an older guy now, so I gotta ease my way back into.
Yeah, take it to it. How you doing, man? I'm doing all right, man. What Doug say last week? If they want to pay me to be a practice dummy, I'm all for it, man. I think we all take that. I'm not getting in shape for camp. I'm getting in shape to cheer. That's all I'm getting in shape for. We got a big season coming up for our Buckeyes, my Tar Blooders, and everything in between. So I'm getting ready for that, man. But yeah, man, let's get into it, man. Let's talk about the NIL. Obviously, the NIL situation is ever evolving.
Right.
That's the best way to say it, man. You never know what you're going to get, but we're trying to put some stuff in place here regarding the NCAA and the ruling where the schools are going to start revenue sharing with the athletes. Certain let's say teams, are strictly scholarship. Taking this money, just going to your scholarship. You go to school, nothing changed for you. It's the same situation. But then a few programs, football, men and women's basketball, women's volleyball at Ohio State, will be receiving a little bit of additional compensation above just that standard scholarship. And as we already know, they didn't go into exact specifics, but that's what kind of things are going. But with that ruling, they kind of put out something as well that we're going to bring in a third party that's going to come in and look at some of these NIL deals, right? And kind of determine, are schools essentially paying for play? Or is this actually a business marketing deal where a player is using his name, image, and likeness and be able to kind of generate some funds for it? And then, as we already expected, as we already stated, it's kind of has some pushback already. The plaintiff here, in this case, are already sending letters out to school because the schools are trying to limit certain deals, stating that they don't feel that this is, I don't know the term they want to use, market value for what their player is receiving for the funds that's involved with that deal. And, there's going to be some stirring up from there. But, Tim, what's your thoughts on that? And is it going to stand? Is it going to hold? What's your thoughts?
Is it going to hold? I feel like the NCAA might be like 0-90 right now when it comes to lawsuits. So what's happening right now is you had the House settlement. That settlement was $20.5 million for this year, and that $20.5 million kind of operates as like a soft cap for how much you have to pay all your players. That's all athletes and all sports. Most schools are going to limit that to maybe football, basketball, maybe other sport. Ohio State football, basketball. I think women's volleyball was the other sport. The challenge there is you have this cap at $20.5 million. We already know that's not enough, right?
Yeah,
it's not enough. Now, when we see some teams reported Texas budget for their team is like $40 million. I don't know if that's an accurate report, but it feels accurate based on all of the talent that is coming out of the portal and going to a team like Texas and some of these other teams. So what ends up happening is those teams that are way above the $20.5 million in terms of players that they have to pay are obviously subsidizing the rest of that money through their collective or their donations or, all the money they're bringing in. Now, the NCAA brings in this third party to be able to evaluate deals. And those deals, you have the $20.5 million soft cap, that's the settlement. Then anything else that's above $600 goes through this process of whether or not, it's approved. What the third party is looking at is, one, is this deal coming from an entity that's associated with the school, right? Because they're saying $20.5 million from the school, everything else is money that's coming from a business that's not associated with the school per se. It's not donating to the school. They're just doing a marketing deal to impact their business. So that's what they're trying to measure. The reality is we know that most of the money right now in NIL is coming directly from the school or from donors or collectives trying to impact players and wins, etc. So I think there was a report out there that over 50% of the deals that are out there have not been approved. So obviously that's not going to fly on the opposite side, right? So the lawyer sent a letter out, and this is going to be more lawsuits. And this is the challenge here is that you don't know as a school what rules to play by. Like, what rules do you follow? Do you follow the rules where we got $20 million to spend on all of our athletes? Or do you just buck the rules and say, look, $20 million, that's one thing. The school could pay that. But we still got this collective. We still got more money than that. So let's just do our thing. Let's recruit players. And then you get caught in the middle. And I feel like Ohio State might be one of those teams that's kind of caught in the middle, kind of following the rules to an extent and just, paying attention to see how things continue to develop, to see how much leeway they have to go above and beyond what's already set out there. And when we look at some of the recent results of recruiting, specifically on the defensive line, where guys are getting paid big money, we saw an offensive lineman get paid money, $5 million committed. Imagine, so think about this: $20.5 million cap, $5 million going to an offensive lineman. Let's say that's over in multiple years, but still, let's say in 1 year he's getting 1.5. All right, 1.5 million of $20 million. That's for all sports, concentrated
all sports
on one player who's still in high school right now. It's just not realistic. So how this thing evolves, we don't know. But right now the negotiations seem like the negotiations are the lawsuits, and that will continue to set the next precedent.
Yeah, because it's very interesting, Chim, because you can think about it from both standpoints, right? Let's say you're a school that plan on saying the budget is 20.5. We want to, we may be a couple dollars over, maybe get to 21. We want to try to stay around this 20.5. But with that budget, you set up, and like Ohio State, we say we're not losing any sports, right? We're going to keep all our varsity sports that we had the previous years before here. This is exactly how we're going to do it. We're going to have money to pay, all parties that need to be paid. We're going to have our student athletes continue to kind of go on from there, right? And you know it. You got the money. You see it. You do it. You're happy with it, right? And from there, let's say you're a different school. You're USC, right? We know USC has, I Bleav, the number one recruiting class for the year 2026. USC is known for some other sports other than just football, right? They got a good man and women's basketball team. They're good in other things, track and field, things of that nature. But they're spending a lot more money towards football, right? Let's say their budget alone on football, like you say, Texas may be rumored at 40. Let's give an example. Let's say USC is at 30. Like, we're spending 30 on the football team. And then they still got all these other additional expenses and other athletes that they kind of have to look at. So then what's going to happen, right? Because maybe you could do it for a year. Maybe you could do it for 2 years. But then what happens when maybe that donor fatigue comes in? Because, the guy who cut the biggest check was expecting to win right away. And you guys get to the playoffs, and you got to play 8 games to win a national championship in the playoffs. You got to play all the top teams in the nation. Oh, and you slip up and you don't get it done. So now that donor steps away from the program a little bit and lets you guys kind of figure things out on your own. So now what do? Because now you done wrote these contracts with these players saying you're going to pay XYZ money. You just say, like, hey, we don't got it. And because once you say you don't got it, what's happening? Our players in the portal right away, right? You start looking at your top guys that you kind of start making those guarantees above the scholarship to. But then you start looking at your other programs, right? All right, well, we'll put all this money towards football. The softball team, this looking at the books, it's just really expensive here. Maybe we need to get rid of the softball team so we don't have to pay for those scholarships, so we can kind of get this money back to the DN because we still want to be competitive here at football. And you kind of start putting all that stuff into question if you're a university that's not following that rule, right? You're going above and beyond, and you're really overspending what you already have coming in, what we know you have coming in off those TV deals. And then you feel on the end, right? Let's say you are Ohio State, you're playing by the rules, and you just won a national champion. You're feeling really good, but you're playing by the rules now, and now your recruiting class is sinking. We usually 2 or 3 in the nation. This year was 6, right? And guys are not so hyped up so much more about the development, and they're going to other schools because the money is just better. And now what? Right? Now we're not competitive. Right? Now let's say we're not losing games. Right? And now we have God forbid, a 3 or 4 season loss and we missed the playoffs. what does that look like? Do we now stop playing by the rules and start having to add more to it? So it's just like a lot of things that could happen here with it. I think in general, in my opinion, you should try to stick to the rule. Like everybody, let's come together here. We know what the money is. Let's try to stick to it. But we all know every team is looking for some type of competitive advantage. And if it's paying more money than the other school has on recruits, so be it. If at the end of it, we could beat you in the fall.
Yeah, if you're outside, I think you stick to the rules, but you stay ready. You stay guns loaded. We ready to go once things change. I mean, if you're Texas Tech, for instance, who seems to be doing really good when it comes to NIL dollars, at least in the current state. I think they had a softball player that made $1 million. That was reported $1 million. He was like the top softball player or something like that. If you think about $1 million going to softball, I mean, how much money is left for football? But they're also getting tons of recruits as well. I think if you're a team like that, maybe you push the boundaries a little bit with the expectation that, if this thing continues to operate the way it is, at least in this year, this is the first year where the settlement is in place. Stuff is all it's still in influx. So if you kind of front load these contracts where guys this year can make money, you may have an opportunity to quickly improve your team this year. But I think if you're Ohio State, you have other advantages like coaching, like development, and others that you can lean on and kind of wait and see. Okay, we're gonna stick by the rules. We may lose a couple guys that we probably would have got if things were even. But if things quickly change, we have the ability to, go full force and maybe get those guys back. Like, it's not over, right? So I think Ohio State, as a kind of a leader in college football, and the risk of going a little bit too far and not abiding by the rules and then having some type of sanctions, the risk is too great. So I don't think it's worth the risk. Obviously, I mean, we're talking about recruiting classes ranked 6th. That's not terribly
Not
bad.
Right, not bad. No.
I think more importantly is the position. Like, where, are we able to reload in terms of the positions across the team? I do think there's been some challenges on the defensive line. There's a lot of, there's been a lot of focus on Coach Johnson, his ability to recruit, and there may be something there. Maybe he needs some support in recruiting. I always put recruiting on the entire staff, right? I understand position coaches are important in their recruiting, but if there is one position where you feel like we're not recruiting at the level that we need to, then all right, increase the efforts there. Get the D coordinator out there. Get the head coach out there to visit the guy, right? When Coach Tressel showed up in Claremont, Florida to recruit me, that's who I recruit. That's who I committed to. I committed to Tressel. Shout out to Coach Hazel recruiting me. But at the end of the day, the deciding factor was Tressel showing up. So at the end of, I think it's the same way, regardless of position. If there's one position where you feel like we need to do better at, then you need all hands on deck to make sure that happens. But I do think the money plays a factor, and I think Ohio State is best positioned in a kind of a wait and see approach. Continue to have a process for doing things the way that are within the rules. But if things change, the rules change, we're ready to, we're ready to go full force.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because, obviously we don't know, right? I mean, you don't know, right? We kind of hear rumors about what schools are spending. When it really comes down to it, you don't know. But obviously the team that we always got our eye on is that team up north, right? Yep. And we're looking at their recruiting class. I think Ohio State like I say, 6th in the nation, 21 recruits. If we didn't get another guy, so be it, right? I think if we was to gain another edge guy, maybe a pretty good guy that we could, check several boxes, 4-star guy, something of that nature, you say like, oh, great job. This is a strong, very strong recruiting class. But right now, we only have one guy on the edge. We got 3 interior guys, which I think is maybe even harder to find good interior guys. And obviously, we don't know. They pan out. They might be good. They might be not. But we know right now we only have 4 in total. Looking at the team up north, they have 5 guys. They got 3 on the edge. Then they got 2 or 3 guys inside. They got 2 4-stars on the edge. And their recruiting class is ranked 8th in the nation. They have 20 hard commits at this time. But it's funny, like like you say, we think Ohio State is trying to stay by the rules. It doesn't. And looking at their class, just looking at historically, Michigan is usually recruiting class usually not ranked that high. They're usually in
Yeah.
the teens or so, and then usually, they got some guys from their state that kind of fill in that roster. Some guys from Michigan, some guys from Ohio usually kind of fill it out. And looking at their class, I think they only got one recruit from the state of Ohio, no recruit from the state of Michigan, and everybody else is from, throughout the country. Like almost look like Oregon almost. You got a guy from the Midwest, you got guys off the East Coast, guys from Florida, guys from all over in that recruiting class. And, obviously, it's interesting because, it's rumors, right, that this team may get hit with some sanctions. They may, have a postseason ban or something like that. But still, that recruiting class is kind of standing up. But you typically, once again, you don't see Michigan that high when it comes to recruiting.
Gotta be spending some. They gotta be committing some bread. I mean, it felt like the last few years they probably undercommitted when it comes to money for like recruits. I think they took care of the guys that had already produced for them. But it started with the quarterback that they went and got to switch from LSU. But it seems like since then they've kind of been committed to being able to compete from an NIL standpoint, etc. So yeah, they got a pretty good recruiting class, and they got a type of class that when you look at up front, they got the guys up front that are characteristic of who they are, right, or how they want to build a team, right. So number 8 recruiting class is higher than what Michigan typically is, and it's also one that leans to who they want to be in terms of having those guys up front that are highly rated, and then filling in everywhere else. But what, like you mentioned, what is uncharacteristic, it's not a guys from the state. This is guys from all over the country, which means they're going out and they're competing. And in this day and age, if you're going out and competing and getting recruits, that means at least you're at a minimum matching the dollars.
Matching,
right?
that's right. At the minimum, right? That's for sure. You're not coming. You'll see it from Ohio State. You'll see a guy from California, but usually a guy from California, you're not going to Michigan unless you got some ties there or some dollars there that's waiting for him, that's for sure. But man, we want to talk about your guy, man. Your guy, Paul Philbaum, he's an SEC reporter. He got his SEC show that he does on a weekly basis. And, essentially his job to, that's his bread and butter. He supports the SEC. Anytime you get around college football, he's thumping his chest for Alabama and why they shouldn't have never missed a playoff and, things of that nature. But
not as much as Kirk Herbstreit, but
not
as much
shout
as
to Kirk. But no, Paul was he started, I don't know why he was talking about the Texas game, but obviously getting ready for college football. But he's guaranteeing that the Texas Longhorns comes up to Ohio State in week 1, being led by the young phenom, Arch Manning, is guaranteeing a win week 1 here in the Horseshoe against our Buckeyes. I don't know, man. It's kind of interesting that he would do that, right? I mean, it's kind of like,
Is Feinbaum a Texas alum?
Man, I don't know where that got from, man.
It's interesting that he's guaranteeing, right? He's always been a clear kind of Bama leaning guy, right? And now that Texas is in the SEC, it's saying Bama is not, performing to the historical Nick Saban years of performance. It seems like he's kind of shifting a little bit to Texas. He's gonna get behind the Texas train, but specifically Arch Manning. And everybody is high on Arch, and I think rightfully so. I think he's a great prospect. We haven't seen his full potential yet because he hasn't been starting a quarterback, but his guarantee is based on the fact that Arch Manning, I think what he said was that Arch has learned from Quinn Ewers. He's learned from the head coach over there at Texas, and now he's ready to kind of blossom into this high level player, and he's putting the full confidence in Arch Manning's ability to go in the shoe and get that win, which, I think, just watching Texas, I think Texas, they have a approach to winning games. Defensively, they rush they play coverage. They rely on a dominant defensive line to do that, to be able to stop the run, etc. And then offensively, they need to get something going in the run game, and then from there, they're able to, take some shots and, get some opportunities there. That's how they played the last couple years.
Mm-hmm.
I think Arch Manning does add this dynamic, this run dynamic that gives them another element in the run game. We saw it, in the playoff game. He got knocked out the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, we gotta talk about that. You kind of gazing over it. No, so one of Paul's statements was whatever this segment he was doing. He was just saying that basically, if Arch plays more against Ohio State in the playoffs, they most likely win that game. He basically was just kind of saying like, Ewers was good, but he kind of was like, shot out by that time, and
Yeah.
the coach needed to make the bold decision to pull Ewers and play Arch, almost like you seen with Tua and Jalen Hurts those years ago when Alabama was in the national championship. You just need to, be bold and make that decision to move forward there. But it's like almost Paul forgot, like, yeah, Arch had a play in the game. I think he got a first down. But then he met up with Lathan Ransom. And Lathan Ransom decided, like, yeah, this will be your first and last play of this game. Like, like,
that was it.
That was it. Now, he didn't go into, it's football and sometimes things get missed. He didn't go into no concussion protocol or anything of that nature. But if you know the game, you know enough, you can see that after that hit, his body freezes. He lets that ball go. Luckily, his shoulder got down first, so it wasn't a fumble. But he was out, and he no longer played anymore because of that silver bullet defense.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a factor.
He definitely got rocked. He had some concussion. He got up doing sign language and other stuff. He was speaking in tongues a little bit. But yeah, but to his point, Lathan Ransom is no longer on the Buckeye defense. So the assassin that was pretty much every game, he had one of those hits. I mean, I feel like every game in the playoffs, if there was a ball carrier, typically a running back, he was delivering a blow where they got up and they thought twice about whether this was a game they actually wanted to continue playing. Is this what I want to continue to do in my life?
We got a guy named Caleb Downs, man. He's pretty good too, man. So hey, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, so some young guys that step up as well. I think what Arch does do is give him that quarterback run aspect that Quinn Ewers didn't have, and they made up for it with kind of check down throws, which really was their whole offense. Like all of their games, and we got to go back and watch this game. I got to go back and watch this game.
Yeah.
So we'll probably set up a live, sit back, have a drink or whatever, and watch it live and kind of talk through what we see. But I just thinking back, I remember a lot of their plays really came from check downs to the running back. And
they hit on a couple wheel routes, right?
Yeah, and a couple wheel routes that really was the same play, ran twice to score touchdowns. And I thought they had a good game plan. I thought they executed it well, given what they were facing. Ohio State was a tough matchup for them, and they just took what the defense gave them on offense. And defensively, they contained the receivers, the big time playmakers, kept everything in front of them, and did an okay job defensively too. They didn't give up a lot. So I think they have the same formula going in. Obviously, when they getting prepared for this first game, the game they're going to watch over and over again is the last game, and they're going to feel good about them being in position to have an opportunity to win, and then also having a quarterback that has more experience, etc. But it's still them going into a hostile environment. It's still them playing on the road. They're going to have to be able to run the ball. They're going to have to be able to stop the run in order to win the game. And that's really what it comes down to. I don't care who's that quarterback, but he does add that run dynamic that gives them ability to potentially improve the run game as long as he doesn't get knocked out the game. But quarterback run, you talk about week one, running the ball with the quarterback is a risk.
It's a risk.
When you go week one against a heavyweight. I'm not talking about going against Citadel or whatever smaller school, but when you're going against a heavyweight, taking your starting quarterback and running the ball with them is a risk, because if he gets knocked out in week one, he could be knocked out for multiple games. Right? So that's something that they're going to have to consider. They saw what happened the last time he went out there. how much do you want to protect your quarterback in the first game of the season when you're Texas? So that's definitely something that they're going to be thinking about.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then, man, it's funny. It's July, man. Like, it's getting close, man. It's getting close that, about essentially a couple of weeks, we'll be talking about our guys reporting to camp. And, the NFL, they got their preseason. That stuff will kick off first. And next high school, college, NFL, and we're on into the season, man. And we'll be bringing what you can. And like I say, we'll get into it. We're going to look at that Texas game. We're going to jump on live. We're going to break down what we see. Because once again, the players will be different, but the stats are the same, and you will imagine that, the scheme of this game will essentially a lot what we saw last year in the 25 playoffs. But yeah, that's our show for the week. Please follow us on YouTube. Lock in on Spotify, Apple. Yeah, man, we bring the show to you guys. We are always happy that you guys engage, ask us questions, get into it. We like to get into it with you guys as well. We always want to describe and discuss our Ohio State Buckeyes. But we're going to end this show as we always do with a nice OH.
Ayo.
Go Bucks. Talk to you guys soon.
Go Bucks.